I'm not a fan of first-person shooters. I don't know what it is, but with a handful of exceptions, I just don't enjoy the genre. The ones that I do enjoy have something else to them. Usually an exploration or puzzle-solving element. But for your general mission-based FPS, the only ones that have ever truly caught my interest was the Halo series. I've loved Halo ever since the first time I played it with my older brother and his college buddies back in 2002. It was something special. I, 12 years old, was invited by my adult brother to play an M-rated game with his, what at the time seemed like, grown-up friends. It was exciting for a young, somewhat sheltered boy just taking his first steps into his teenage years. I think that excitement in large part fed into what drew me into the game, but it wasn't what kept me there. Yeah, playing Halo with those college kids was my first time feeling like what I imagined being a grown-up would be like, and that feeling is very much tied into Halo. So when I got my Xbox and my copy of Halo a few months later, that feeling of grown-upness came with it. In fact, that feeling kinda pervaded my entire Xbox library. I still loved my GameCube, but those were all kids' games, and PlayStation was cool, but it didn't have the rad aesthetic of the Xbox or the mature and exciting games like Halo or Morrowind on it. But I'm 35 now, actually an adult with a wife, a kid, 2 dogs, a cat, and even an asshole neighbor to round out the experience. So those big grown-up feelings that Halo gave me are long since gone now, and yet I still find myself absolutely loving the series. There is a magic to this game that is hard to put into words, a magic that no other FPS has quite matched for me. If it making me feel like a grown-up was what got me into Halo, something else has kept me there. And that something else is what I want to talk about here. Halo 1 came out at a time when video game manuals still existed, and it even included a bit of story. Man, I miss these things. The way makers of games wrote them to be interesting to read while conveying the information you might need to play a game, along with a lot of official art that you weren't likely to see anything else, just made these things almost as much of a treat as the games themselves. Bungie, in particular, was a company that had an ethos of getting the player into the action as quickly as possible, and though we may be long past the era when a game's story was only told through the manual, they were able to shunt the game's introduction into the manual, so let's take a look at that before we dive into the game itself. So, to summarize rather than reading verbatim, it's 2552 and humanity is spread out into the stars under a unified government called the United Nations Space Command. 32 years ago, contact with a colony called Harvest was lost. A group was sent out to investigate, but only one damaged ship returned with stories of an unstoppable warship that wiped them out. It wasn't long before all of humanity came to know these aliens as the Covenant, a religious coalition of alien species that, for some reason, consider humanity to be an affront to their gods. After a series of devastating defeats, UNSC Admiral Preston Cole established the Cole Protocol, which means that vessels in danger of capture must either try to escape via a blind jump or self-destruct rather than risking leading the enemy to Earth. However, all is not lost because for a few decades now, a secret military project on a planet called Reach to create super soldiers has suddenly become more relevant to humanity's survival. These soldiers, known as Spartans, were going to be sent on a secret mission to learn the location of the Covenant homeworld. But before the mission could begin, the Covenant arrived and obliterated Reach, and the only ship to escape was the Pillar of Autumn carrying the last Spartan. In hopes of drawing the Covenant away from Earth, the Pillar jumped blindly into the blackness of space, completely unaware of how they were about to change the very nature of the war they fought. This rolls us directly into the plot of the game, in which, after having made the blind jump required by the Cole Protocol, the Pillar of Autumn's captain is discussing battle strategies with the shipboard AI named Cortana. They found themselves in a bit of trouble because where they jumped to just so happened to have even more Covenant, as well as a mysterious ring-shaped object orbiting a gas giant. A decision is made, and the player character known only as Master Chief is awoken from cryostasis. The Chief is told to make his way up to the bridge, weaponless, running through an ongoing invasion until he reaches the bridge. It is here that Chief is given his mission: get Cortana off the ship and keep her safe from the Covenant. This is a task easier said than done, considering, that they are in an unknown area of space in the middle of a hostile fleet, and the ship they're on is currently being bombarded by enemy plasma fire. But sure, Chief will see what he can do. First task, get himself and Cortana off the ship alive. He charges through the ship, blasting any Covenant along the way until he reaches the last life pod, which subsequently launches to the rings, stranding Chief along with the rest of the Marines in enemy territory.
We're gonna make it, aren't we, sir? I don't want to die out here.
Look!
The opening of the second stage gives us just a moment to breathe and consider the questions hanging over our heads before throwing us right back into the action. The big question, of course, being the ring. The questions of why is it here and who built it lingers over our heads for the first half of the game. It's clearly not a Covenant design by virtue of it not being a shiny purple, but it's also not human-made by virtue of the Pillar crew knowing nothing about it. This ring had to have been created by something else. Something that seems gone? Maybe? I think this is part of what piqued my interest in the story of Halo as a kid. I love a good mystery, and this ring world certainly gave my young mind a lot to think about as I got my bearings in this new world. But for now, we have a job to do. The Marines stationed on the Pillar have been scattered across the ring, and Chief has to get them back together in order to mount a resistance to the Covenant forces in the area. There's also a bit of luck in that Keyes, the ship's captain, has also managed to survive the battle as well as the crash of the Pillar of Autumn and is being held captive by the Covenant on board a capital ship that Cortana managed to disable during the fight. So that night, the Chief and a contingent of Marines assault the ship and break the captain out. This is when we start to answer a few of those questions. The Covenant, who call it Halo, believe it is a weapon of vast, unimaginable power, and if they can utilize that power, they can finally use it to wipe humanity out. Cortana also says it has some kind of religious significance, but clearly considers that a secondary reason as to why the Covenant are interested in it. Regardless, ultimate superweapon or object of religious devotion, the ring cannot be allowed to fall into the Covenant's hands. So the Chief is off yet again, this time in search of a map that will lead the humans to Halo's control room. The map happens to be located on a small island, and in order to gain a foothold, they have to land on a defended beach, and man, listen to this music.
Touchdown! Hit it, Marines!
Go, go, go!
This is a massive part of why I love Halo as much as I do. The music adds a sense of epic scale that I don't find in other military shooters. The moment-to-moment gameplay is mostly what you would expect. It's a lot of going through corridors and blasting enemies away. In fact, a criticism of Halo Combat Evolved when it first released is that you're fighting through a lot of similar corridors, and that's very fair. In fact, I'd be willing to accept an argument that Halo CE is a bad first-person shooter because of that. But the thing is, I don't care, because what Halo does have is...
Presentation!
The story is a boots-on-the-ground guerrilla war story in space. You may be a super soldier, but you aren't anything special beyond that. You're still one of the Marines. Sure, you're a Marine who can do the job of an entire platoon, but it's a video game, and by virtue of being the player character, Chief would be uncannily capable whether the story acknowledged it or not. You're fighting for survival, the battle on the ring reflecting the battle the human species is locked in on a galactic scale. You're trapped with an overwhelming foe and fighting back with everything you have, and Marty O'Donnell's score punctuates that fight with the most bombastic of exclamation points. The feel is also aided by how on the back foot you are against the Covenant. There are 5 Covenant ships in this fleet against your 1, which, if you read the manual, you know just barely escape the destruction of an entire planet. You're just a small group of humans fighting a truly hopeless battle. Your only advantages being one super soldier and the vain hope that this ring turns out to actually be a really big gun. Shit's bad, and it's only gonna get worse from here on. Eventually, Chief finds the control room, and there, everything changes. Chief, being the ever-careful guardian he is, uploads Cortana into the Mystery Ring's computer system, and after taking a minute to process the wealth of new data she's taking into herself, Cortana's entire demeanor changes.
Wait. No, that can't be. Oh, those Covenant fools. They must have known. There must have been signs.
Slow down. You're losing me.
The Covenant found something. Buried in this ring. Something horrible. And now, they're afraid.
Something buried?
The captain. We've got to stop the captain.
Keys?
The weapons cache he's looking for. It's not really... We can't let him get inside.
I don't understand.
There's no time. Get out of here, find Keyes, stop him. Before it's too late!
Chief didn't even have the time to collect Cortana, and for the first time since the beginning of the game, the duo is separated. Chief goes off on his own, following Keyes' signal into a swamp. The Covenant here are on edge, and there's even one point where they're running away from human gunfire? Holy shit, what did Keyes find in there? These are guys who would stand and fight as a 7-foot-tall green demon single-handedly kills entire squads. But now they're running away from what appears to be half-hearted assault rifle bursts? As Chief continues into the structure the Covenant were fleeing, he finds signs of mayhem. The Covenant have been decimated, and it doesn't seem to be the doing of a group of Marines. In fact, he eventually finds a Marine out of his mind with fear, taking shots at the Chief, screaming that Chief is not going to turn him into one of those things.
Ah! Don't touch me, you freaks! I won't be like you, I'll die first! Find your own hiding place, the monsters are everywhere! Play dead! That's what I did, play dead. They took the live ones. Oh god, I can still hear them. Monsters!
This seems bad. Unfortunately, this is indeed confirmed to be bad once Chief finds the recording of one Private Jenkins. The recording follows the squad working their way into this same structure through the path that the Chief just followed, and finding the destruction that Chief found. So, the Marines didn't find any cool anti-Covenant weapon down here. Damn. Eventually the recording works its way to the room that the Chief is currently standing in as he watches in horror as the group is taken out by some kind of zombie jellyfish things? These are the Flood, an adaptive parasitic species that, for some reason, is housed on the ring. Chief has to fight his way out and eventually encounters 343 Guilty Spark, who refers to Chief as a reclaimer, whatever that is.
Someone has released the Flood. My function is to prevent it from leaving this installation, but I require your assistance. Come, this way.
Chief, I've lost your signal! Where'd you go? Chief! Chief!
Spark teleports Chief to a place called the Library, where Chief has to battle through hordes of Flood in order to get the Index, which is the key to activating Halo's defenses and eradicating the Flood. After obtaining the Index, Chief is whisked away to activate Halo and...
Oh, really?
Oh! Hi, Cortana!
Cortana.
I've spent the last 12 hours cooped up in here watching you toady about, helping that thing get set to slit our throat.
Hold on now. He's a friend.
It turns out that Halo is, in fact, a weapon, but it's a weapon that kills everything. The point of the rings, yes, Spark does indicate that there's more than one, is to wipe the galaxy clean of any life forms that the Flood can use as host, thus managing the Flood's population and protecting? Yeah, we'll go with protecting the galaxy.
You have no idea how this ring works, do you? Why the Forerunners built it? Halo doesn't kill Flood, it kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life.
Chief is, understandably, not okay with this. He takes Cortana and fights his way out. Now, the plan is to self-destruct the Pillar of Autumn and destroy the ring. From here on, Chief and Cortana are alone in their fight through the ring. There are seemingly no humans left, and the Covenant, the Flood, and the ring itself are fighting him and threatening to stop him from halting the destruction of all galactic life. Cortana tells Chief that they need keys to be able to initiate the Pillar's self-destruct program, and he just so happens to be back aboard the ship that the Covenant had imprisoned him on earlier in the game.
I learned how to tap into the grid when I was in the control center. Unfortunately, each jump requires a rather consequential expenditure of energy.
Something tells me I'm not gonna like this.
But I'm pretty sure I can pull it from your suit without permanently damaging your shields. Needless to say, I think we should only try this once.
Do it.
Oh, I see. The coordinate data needs to be... Right. Sorry.
The threat of the Flood is highlighted beautifully in stage because they are laying waste to the enemy that had had humanity against the wall for decades. The enemy that just a few days ago wiped out an entire planet and that you have been struggling to gain a foothold against this entire game is being utterly decimated. devastated by the Flood, to the point that an entire capital ship is in near ruins. This is what will happen to the entire galaxy if the Flood are allowed to survive. And the Covenant seem pretty intent to stupidly bumble into annihilating all life in the galaxy as well. The stakes of this war just shifted from a war to survival to a war for the fate of all life. Human, Covenant, and anything else that may be out there. It's unclear why the Covenant are so interested in the ring, other than Cortana's earlier speculation that it's a weapon with some unidentified religious significance. But what is clear is that they are going to stop at nothing to try to fire it. The stakes can't be higher and the situation can't be worse. You are one man against 3 whole ass armies, and the only solution is to blow up everything without an escape plan. Ultimately, Chief finds Keyes, but he's been infected by the Flood, and seems to be part of some large Flood cocoon thing that they're building on the bridge of the ship. Chief delicately retrieves the captain's neural lace, and the two head off to the crash site of the Pillar of Autumn.
This thing is falling apart!
It'll hold.
We're not gonna make it!
We'll make it.
Pull up! Pull up! You did that on purpose, didn't you?
One way or the other, they're going to end this. Chief and Cortana make it to the bridge, where Cortana starts a self-destruct countdown, giving them just enough time to try to radio a Pelican to get them off this ring. Unfortunately, Spark halts the countdown, leaving Chief and Cortana to have to blow up the ship manually.
You can't imagine how exciting this is to have a record of all of our lost time. Human history, is it? Fascinating. Oh, how I will enjoy every moment of its categorization. To think that you would destroy this installation as well as this record. I am shocked. Almost too shocked for words.
They fight their way to the engine room in order to punch in a new and much more direct self-destruct sequence into the ship's systems. And now with the engine going critical, it's time to get the hell out of here. Fortunately, there is still one very convenient starfighter docked on the ship, and they have time to make it if they go now. This results in a mad dash across the outer structure of the ship as the world blows up around them, flattening any Flood, Covenant, or Sentinels that get in their way. It's a frantic and bombastic conclusion to the story that ends with them getting into the fighter, tearing into space, and the explosion of the pillar damaging the ring enough to tear itself apart. Then, it's all over. Watching the destruction from the windows of the ships, Cortana reflects, you know what? I'll let her say it.
Did anyone else make it?
Scanning. Just dust and echoes. We're all that's left. We did what we had to do for Earth. An entire Covenant armada obliterated, and the Flood. We had no choice.
The game ends on a somber note. The battle is won, but the war is not only far from over, but the darkness of space hides even greater horrors than the Covenant, and those horrors will all have to be faced before the war is done. If it's not clear from this whole video, I love Halo. I love its scope and its grandeur, but I also love how fundamentally human the story is. It's a story about survival against ever-worsening odds, about looking a universe that wants you dead in its face and denying it. But it's also a grand space opera about the fate of the galaxy, and everything about its presentation, from its visual design to the music, captures that. Halo Combat Evolved is where this epic began, and as such it has some first game syndrome elements to it, but those aren't the things I remember when I think back on Halo, and they aren't the things that stick with me when I revisit it. What I remember is landing on the beach with my squad and running directly into battle. I remember meeting the Flood for the first time and the slow revelation of how truly horrifying these creatures are and the horrifying measures the ancient Forerunners had to take to halt their spread. And I remember Cortana and Chief's last words.
Halo. It's finished.
No. I think we're just getting started.